I Like Me Better by LeilahMoon, read by Ella Max Mabella. Chapter 17. Hermione was pleased to get out of the castle a few days later. The sky was clear, pale grey, and the grass was springy and damp underfoot as she set off with Harry and Ron for their first ever Care of Magical Creatures class. Ron and Hermione weren't speaking to each other due to his utter refusal to understand that Crookshanks was behaving as cats do. He was the one who ought to take better care of Scabbers rather than be raiding her ginger pet. Hagrid was waiting for the class at the door of his hut. He stood in his moleskin overcoat with Fang the boarhound at his heels, looking impatient to start.
"Come on now, go move on," he called. "Got a real treat for you today. Great lesson coming up. Everyone here? Right, follow me."
Hagrid led them to the outskirts of the Forbidden Forest, and the students found themselves outside a kind of paddock. There was a bit of a to-do when he realized no one had been able to open their books.
"You've got to stroke him."
And Draco, who wasn't the biggest fan of Hagrid anyway, had said loudly, "Oh, really witty, giving us books that try and rip our hands off." Eventually, Hagrid was able to get back on track with his lesson plan and told them all about hippogriffs, which were extremely bizarre creatures. They had the bodies, hind legs, and tails of horses, but the front legs, wings, and heads of what seemed to be giant eagles with cruel steel-colored beaks and large, brilliantly orange eyes. The talons on their front legs were half a foot long and deadly-looking. Hermione was initially concerned about how dangerous these animals could be, but was soon reassured as Harry not only petted one, he even rode on its back. She risked a glance towards Draco and realized too late that he had been a little too reassured by Harry's experience.
"This is very easy,"
Draco drawled.
"I knew it must have been if Potter could do it. I bet you're not dangerous at all, are you, you ugly great brute?"
It happened in a flash of steely talons. Draco let out a scream, and next moment, Hagrid was wrestling the hippogriff back into his collar as he strained to get to Draco, who lay curled in the grass, blood blossoming over his robes.
"I'm dying!" he yelled, and the class panicked. "I'm dying! Look at me! It's killed me!"
Hermione's breath caught, and she made to run towards him. Noticing Harry and Ron looking oddly at her, she changed direction and veered towards the gate, pulling it open for Hagrid to carry Draco through. As they passed, Hermione saw that there was a long, deep gash in Draco's arm. Blood splattered in the grass, and Hagrid ran with him up the slope towards the castle. Very shaken, the Care of Magical Creatures class followed at a slow walk. Hermione kept time with them and hated every second of it. The Slytherins were all shouting about Hagrid, and she noticed an uncomfortable feeling bloom in the pit of her stomach when Pansy Parkinson announced she was going to check on Draco. Hermione was frustrated that she hadn't been able to sneak into the hospital wing to visit Draco. Whilst logically she knew that Madame Pomfrey would easily be able to heal the cut, she still couldn't help but worry excessively. That was until she noticed Draco's swagger as he reappeared in class late on Thursday morning.
"How is it, Draco?"
simpered Pansy.
"Does it hurt much?"
"Yeah," said Draco, looking around the classroom to find Hermione. He gazed briefly at her with large puppy-dog eyes. She narrowed hers. They were making a new potion in their lesson today, and Draco set up his cordon right next to Hermione, Harry, and Ron. He winked at her when everyone else had turned towards Snape. It was official, Hermione decided. Draco Malfoy was a menace. He spent a majority of the lesson having Harry and Ron cut up his ingredients. He didn't dare ask Hermione, as he knew he'd come out with much more than a sore arm. And then requesting to swap when they weren't quite up to his standards. Seething, Hermione had taken to completely ignoring the three of them until she overheard the name Sirius Black.
"Thinking of trying to catch Black single-handed, Potter?"
"Yeah, that's right," Harry shrugged.
"Of course, if it were me," Draco said quietly, "I'd have done something before now. I wouldn't be staying in school like a good boy. I'd be out looking for him." "What are you talking about, Malfoy?" Ron snapped.
"Don't you know, Potter?" breathed Draco, his grey eyes narrowed. "Know what?" Draco let out one of his sneering laughs that Hermione hated.
"Maybe you'd rather not risk your neck," he said. "Want to leave it to the Dementors, do you? But if it was me, I'd want revenge. I'd hunt him down myself."
She looked at Draco with confusion, and he just shrugged. Hermione would have to question him in the library later tonight. Draco found her fast asleep at their desk that evening. Her head lay turned slightly to the side, a small smile on her face, and her bushy hair was laid out around her like a halo. He sat down and had the oddest urge to gently stroke her cheek. Quietly, he pulled out a piece of parchment that was nestled beneath her arm. Glancing at it, he sighed. No wonder she was exhausted. The list of homework assignments was beyond ridiculous. He left her to sleep as he made a start on his own work. Eventually, a small voice said, "Draco?" "Finally," he drawled. "You've been rather rubbish company so far this evening." Hermione huffed, still half asleep. "Sorry, you should have gone to see your girlfriend Pansy instead." "What are you talking about, Granger?" She was suddenly wide awake. Nothing." "Please," said Draco, secretly pleased at the jealous tone he noted in her voice. "Never use her name and girlfriend in the same sentence again." Hermione tried not to look smug. "You don't really talk about your friends, you know." "Well, I guess you're my only real one," Draco replied. "How desperately sad." "What about Crabbe and Goyle?" He gave a short laugh. "They're useful at times, I suppose. Blaise and Theo are okay too. We're just very careful about what we say to each other." "So," Hermione smiled sweetly, "does that mean we're best friends?" Draco choked as she continued laughing. "Shall we make each other friendship bracelets? What colors would you like? I could—" She wasn't able to finish her sentence as Draco had thrown 3 quills at her head. "Friendship bracelets, my arse," he muttered darkly. Hermione's smile faded as she remembered what she was meant to be questioning him about. "What were you talking about earlier when you said Harry ought to want revenge on Sirius Black?" "Oh, that?" "Yes, that. Right after you were being the world's biggest prat." Draco glared at her. "I was in exceptional pain, I'll have you know. Still am. I don't see you looking after me." "No, I'm not an idiot." He huffed in a very Hermione-like fashion and told her that, prior to the term starting, he had caught bits of his father on a fire call.
"Yes, Avery, it is correct that Black has escaped. The Potter's secret keeper betrayed him. He's not been seen again since the Muggle culling."
"That doesn't tell us anything," Hermione said in confusion. "Why would you jump to Harry wanting revenge?" "It's obvious, isn't it? Black was the Potter's secret keeper. He betrayed them by telling the Dark Lord, which means it was his fault they were murdered." Draco shrugged. "And even if I'm wrong, hopefully it'll get Potter into some trouble." She rolled her eyes. "You know, if he gets into trouble, so will I." Draco hadn't considered that in his spur-of-the-moment barbs towards the boy who spends too much time with Hermione. Bloody Gryffindors. Hermione continued. "I suppose I can see some of the logic. I just don't know if it's enough to tell Harry." "Don't," he said to protect her. He was certain the Chuckle brothers would run into danger without consideration otherwise. "I'll see if I can find out any more and let you know." She yawned and briefly, too briefly, laid her head on his shoulder. "Thank you." Draco's heart almost burst from his chest. Merlin, what was happening to him? Thank you for listening to today's chapter of I Like Me Better by LeilahMoon, read by LMX Mabella. If you would like to stay up to date on upcoming chapters and stories, you can follow me on YouTube, Spotify, AO3, Instagram, or Tumblr.